President Trump is looking to remove a nearly 100-year-old restriction from gun owners.
Ready? You have the cameras rolling?
This is one of the biggest advancements in gun rights for gun owners that we've seen from any modern president, that's for sure. And today I'm going to tell you exactly what President Trump is looking at removing from the restricted list, but also there's a couple of other things that need to be considered when we look at this restriction. So it's almost like a trifecta, a collaboration event to finally end the restriction on, you guessed it, suppressors. Right now is probably, if it's ever going to happen, it's probably going to be right now. It has to be right now to finally get this done. Today I'm going to tell you the 3 possibilities, or at least the 3 things that could happen to finally remove this restriction from gun owners, and how dumb it is, right? Maybe you're somebody that's watching this and you're like, why would anybody ever want that removed? I'm going to explain a little bit of that as well. So no matter if you agree or disagree, leave your opinion down below after the video. Let's go and jump right in. Now we're going to start with why this is so dumb, and so hopefully you'll kind of get an idea where I'm coming from. Suppressors, we've been paying for the crimes, basically, of gangsters for over 100 years, or almost 100 years. Because the Congress back then said, hey, you know, full autos, SBRs, and suppressors, they're all exponentially more dangerous than firearms of the times. So essentially what they were trying to do is price normal gun owners out of being able to own these firearms. Now you may say, oh, well that's great, nobody really needs a suppressor. We're going to talk about that too. But the point is $200, which is the tax stamp, that's basically the tax you have to pay to own this item, is equal to like over $4,000 back then. So if you had a gun that's, let's say it was, you know, 50 or 60 bucks, which equates to, I don't know, $600 in today's money, right? That was a lot of money, but that's something a lot of people maybe could swing, but $4,000, that priced a ton of people out of being able to own these items. Now, fortunately, there was never any like update to the cost, so it's still $200, but one of the biggest problems with this is the fact that it creates a registry. So for an item like a suppressor, you have to give them extra information, enhanced background checks, not to mention the waiting period where you prepay for an item, and then once you get an approval from the government, oh, okay, now you can have it. Well, also, again, that whole registry thing. So suppressor ownership has increased exponentially, like something like 300% since 2010. So that is a lot more people's information that they actually have that is totally unnecessary. Not only do you pay extra for the item, you have to wait longer for it, and you have to give them more information that creates a registry. This is one of the worst things that has been on the books for, again, almost 100 years. We're still paying for those crimes. Now, believe it or not, in other countries, more restrictive countries, suppressors are totally legal. Actually, in a lot of places like France, they're mandatory. If gun owners don't use them, then they get fined. I don't think we should be going that far, but they are mandatory in a lot of countries. They see them as a necessity to the operation of a firearm. That's going to become very important here in a minute. So one of the first ways that this restriction can finally be removed is through Congress. So there's 2 acts, the Hearing Protection Act and the Shush Act, which essentially would remove those restrictions. It's going to take suppressors off of the NFA, meaning when you go to do a 4473, a background check, that's exactly what you would do for a suppressor then, right? It wouldn't be all this extra waiting period and registries and all this kind of stuff. Do a background check, boom, you're good to go. Now, of course, that requires 60 votes, and so what do we have? A 53-seat majority, getting 7 Democrats on to support this. I don't know. There might be some swaying there. I guess you could do to even get 7 of them, though. I'm not sure that would actually happen. But it's a possibility. Keep in mind, the Hearing Protection Act first came out in 2015. So here we are a decade later still trying this method. That is the preferred method, though. According to Donald Trump Jr., talking to his dad, that's the way they want to do this. To get it passed through law, have President Trump sign off on it, so that restriction is removed forever. Now, The other part of the trifecta is the Bruen case. Now, you may have heard that there was a Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that actually said suppressors are not protected by the Second Amendment. They say that these items in and of themselves are not weapons. They're merely compatible with the weapons. They're not a weapon in and of itself, and so they can't be protected. And they kind of equated this to like ammo, gunpowder, stuff like that, that is necessary to a firearm for it to actually work. My question is, why are they regulated like firearms under the NFA? But if they are firearms, then that means the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is wrong because they say they're not firearms, so they're not protected. They use the example of things that are necessary to a firearm for it to work. Well, even France, right, they don't shoot a lot of their guns. No, historically, just kidding. France says a suppressor is an integral part, it is a necessary part to a firearm. If France has figured this out, so can we. It should be protected because if you look at it versus Bruen, which that Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals did not do, they were looking at the item in and of itself. They didn't look at it compared to a historical context, because if they would have, they probably would have come up to the same conclusion that I do, and I know a lot of y'all do, is that suppressors have been around, commercially available since, 1909? I think the first one made by Percy Hiram Maxim in 1902, right? He was a guy that worked on muffler designs for vehicles, right? And so he used some of that same technology for firearms. Hell, Theodore Roosevelt liked it so much he put it on a Winchester 1894. And guess what? You could order them by mail back then. Theodore Roosevelt put it pretty much perfectly. He liked to go out early morning, hunt, all that kind of stuff, and, control some of the varmints on his land. And he said, hey, I don't want to wake up my neighbors. And that's a big part of it, right? Protecting the hearing of gun owners. There's so many ranges that have issues because of noise, right? So there's a range that I used to be a part of, and they've had noise complaints. They were writing out checks. I mean, they said thousands of dollars. I have no idea. I wasn't sitting there looking at their financials, but it caused them a lot of problems because of noise in the area, because they opened up a huge range. I mean, we're not talking about a small place. We're talking about a big range. And they were having complaints from neighbors in the area. So you eliminate a lot of that, because I can guarantee you, without the red tape, a lot more gun owners are going to buy suppressors. But also it does make firearms a little bit safer as well, right? So you remove a lot of flash from firearms, and also it does reduce some of the felt recoil. And if you hunt in an area, there used to be a place that I hunted, I mean, not even, 10 miles from where I am, but maybe 15, whatever. But still, that place, I mean, tons of woods, but yet just 100 yards from a major intersection, major road in the area, right, where people could hear it, right? If I had suppressors, nobody would have ever been bothered, right? We actually had the cops called on us one time at a private land. Lady I used to know, she'd let us go out there and shoot. Cops called on us. Why? Because of noise. And I understand, right? Guns are loud. Now, you have the right to shoot your guns however you want to, as long as you're being safe with them, of course. But still, suppressor ownership would eliminate so many of those complaints, not to mention saving the hearing of a lot of shooters. So that's the other part of it. So you have possibility going through Congress. You have the Bruen case. If you look at it from a historical perspective, right then and there, that shows that suppressors should not be regulated. They should not be on the NFA, because from a historical lens, we were able to just own them, right? In the early 1900s, and because of the action of just a few, now we can't. That brings us to President Trump. So he can't just sign an executive order because it's federal law, all right? So he can't override that. Right, there would be legal challenges, and it would probably get thrown out anyways. But remember, Pam Bondi has 30 days, and she's not just looking at 21 to 25. Right? There's going to be some issues there too, which are going to have to go again through Congress with the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act is what I'm talking about. But if she's doing the job thoroughly, suppressors have to come up. So maybe then she can propose to the ATF or direct the ATF to create a new rule about suppressors. How awesome would that be, right? We've heard about all these rules about bump stocks and, you know, ghost guns and frames and receivers and FRTs and all this crap. Well, now, what if they had to propose a new rule that allowed suppressors, that took them off of the NFA or didn't put them through the extended background checks, just normal 4473s, and boom, there you go. That would be another like pretty awesome case for gun owners. Now, it would be temporary, right? Because a future administration could then go through that whole process again. Because to create a new rule would mean waiting period, comment period, put it into the Federal Register. But if they can do it with other firearm parts and receivers, why couldn't they do it with suppressors? I'm no scholar, right? I'm no attorney. So just from what I understand, I just think that would be sweet, sweet justification for gun owners forcing the ATF to do something for us this time instead of against us. Suppressors is like one of the toughest things that we have, this hill that we have to climb. And so to get this approved through Congress somehow, some way, even if we can get it to the Supreme Court, they would have to look at it from a historical perspective and say, yes, suppressors are protected under the Constitution. So maybe that's another route as well. You know, there's an uphill battle, but you have so many things that are lining up for this to happen at this time. It's actually pretty exciting. One big key figure in all of this, by the way, Don Jr. You've already seen me show him throughout this video. But his interest and his commitment to the Second Amendment, and of course being so close to his dad, and gun owners of America, this is going to be a big shift. I think we can get it done. I really do. Again, it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think it can get done. So this is pretty exciting news. This is the biggest advancement in gun rights. Such a stark difference from the previous administration already.
We're going to do it one way or the other. We have to do it.
And I can't wait to see how this plays out, man. So stay vigilant, and I'll keep you guys, of course, up to date with what is going on. Now, if you like what I do, consider subscribing. And of course, I want to hear from y'all. Do you think suppressors will finally be removed from the NFA? Let me know down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.